Welcome. This is going to be the 6th book in the Animorphs series, The Capture. Jake is on the cover. He's turning into a fly. Here you can see he's a fly in a barn. It is 154 pages. It was written in February of 1997. The title and the image on the front, as well as the, I don't know what it's called, this little text right here, because I do not read the back of the book or the front of the book or anything like that to spoil myself, because I will probably remember details then. But just this little part here says, now he's one of them. That gives me a pretty good idea, and it's named The Capture, that Jake is getting turned into a controller in this book. I do remember that plot line vaguely. Before I get into those details, here's the little animation in the corner of Jake turning into a fly. Very nice. We like that. The only other thing that I noticed before I get into like plot specific details and such is the little page with the other books by author. Usually it seems to only include books up to the title that we're on. This one, however, goes all the way up to number 17, as well as having Megamorphs number 1 on there. I don't know if they just knew all of those would be out by then. I don't know how that works. But my copy is in like really good condition, and the pages are like quite stiff. I've dropped this book so many times, it's just flown out of my hands. So as far as plot, if this is the book that I'm thinking of, these are my notes beforehand. I recall Jake getting turned into a controller. I don't remember it happening so early in the series. Honestly, so many things are happening way faster than I realized. But from what I remember, Jake, he gets yeerked, and the rest of them have to guard him in like a basement or something for 3 days until the yeerk starves to death, and, you know, because it can't re-up its Kandrona. I don't remember like what questions might arise from that or any specifics of the plot, but I do remember Jake being a controller for some reason, and I don't remember how they figured it out, like how he got turned into a controller, but I do remember them having to watch him and be like, no, he can't escape. He can morph. Got to keep an eye on him. What if he morphed into an ant or something? You know, like these are my notes beforehand. How are they going to keep watch on him? If he can just morph, they can't just tie him up. He'll just, you know, escape as an ant or something like that. If Tom was the one who turned Jake into a controller, wouldn't he notice that Jake's no longer a controller? And on that note, they don't know that Tom isn't a collaborator. A lot of these like plots with Jake are, we got to go save Tom from being a controller. What if Tom turned out to be a willing host, like a collaborator? Wouldn't that like really mess things up for everyone? Would the Yeerks notice Tom or Jake's, say they successfully rescued Tom, would they notice either of those Yeerks missing? And how are they going to explain Jake missing from like school and stuff like that if they have to hold him for 3 days? I'm getting ahead of myself. With that, let's be a fly on the wall and see what the Animorphs get up to this time. The book opens with Jake saying how the invasion is real, but he's changed little things in his narration, like people's names and places, and not the big things though. And the scene starts with Jake sitting down to eat some breakfast and Tom telling him he's going to a sharing meetup, and their mom and dad are out of the house playing tennis, and so Jake's got the house all to himself. Jake talks about how he's been spying on Tom, who's been like really careful to, you know, make sure not to talk about Yeerk stuff in the house, but somehow Jake's still been spying on him, and he thinks that the Yeerk in Tom is like an up-and-comer and moving up the ranks, as it were. And he says that if Tom ever found out who he was, he would be killed or made into a controller himself. And that made me wonder, with the sabotage in the last book with Visser 1 against Visser 3, would that happen? Like, would the controller Tom kill him and just be like, oh yeah, Jake's dead now, guys, sorry about that, my brother, you know, would he kill him? Or would the Yeerk in his head be like, I can use you to overthrow the people above me and gain more power that way? You know what I mean? Like, and move up the ranks a little faster. Where does the politics and the backstabbing end? Tom and Jake, they're eating breakfast, and Tom leaves to go to his meeting. Jake has the house to himself. He double checks, looks in all the rooms, and he's like, yep, I'm home alone. He goes to his room and he opens up a matchbox, and inside is a cockroach, which he acquires the DNA for. I don't know why he would have captured it and not acquired the DNA and just let it go any other time. It's never explained like why he would wait for this. It takes like 2 seconds. He takes all this time to introduce the world, the Yeerks, his ability to morph, the usual. He's trying to get a roach morph to infiltrate a new Yeerk headquarters that they know of, but security is high because of all this stuff with the resistance and the Andalites and the Visser being like outmaneuvered multiple times here. Okay, so he's alone in the house. He morphs into the roach, and multiple times at this point, this is the first like chapter or two here, he's mentioned that like he's not sure if he can kill his brother, but like that's not his only option. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's foreshadowing or just some sort of tension building thing. Like, he doesn't have to kill Tom, you know? He could free him of the Yeerk some other way. But I think he's thinking of, like, what if I encounter Tom in this new headquarters? What am I going to do? I can't just not do anything. That'll be suspicious. But he has a strong emotion around going through this whole, like, morph and saving Tom. He has a strong feeling that he has to do this on his own and it's his responsibility and no one else can help him. I don't know why. They're supposed to be a team. So he's morphing into a roach. He sees himself in the mirror. He's like, oh my God, that's disgusting. As it always is. It's not painful to morph, but it's never pleasant to look at. Suddenly, the light turns on. He had closed the curtains and shut the door and everything, made it really dim in his room. But the light turns on and the roach brain freaks out, goes into the baseboards, into the wall or something. And he's like, why is somebody in my room? I made sure that the house was empty. What's going on? And I thought at this point, I was thinking, ooh, what if Tom had sent somebody to go kidnap Jake and make him into a controller? Like, that would have been something. Like, that would have been an interesting idea. Which also would have led to more further, like, tension with, you know, Tom being like, why didn't you capture Jake? You know, stuff like that. But that's not what's happening here. So he forms his plan of he's going to make his way down to the garage, which he thinks is empty, and unmorph there. And I'm not sure why at first. He only indicated that, like, he didn't want to see himself unmorphing in a mirror. But then I figured, like, well, if somebody was in his room and checked it, it would be kind of strange to have him just, like, all of a sudden be in his room after they checked it. He's crawling along inside the walls and the corners, the baseboards, whatever it is roaches get up to. And he realizes he's in the kitchen. He's crawling along the back of the fridge. And all of a sudden he gets trapped. He can't move anymore. He's stuck. He's in a roach trap, which is really gross. And he's going to have to unmorph, right? Like, there's no other way about this. It turns out that this whole time he's recounting the story to the others. They're all in Cassie's barn, you know, headquarters. They're all like, more carelessness. And Jake is trying to be like, no, I didn't want to bother y'all. Like, and Cassie gets like right up into his face and fingers in his face and stuff. And she's like, I don't care if you're the leader. Like, don't be reckless like that again. Okay. And like all the rest of them are like, ooh. And so they kind of make like a new deal where nobody gets to do more new morphs alone to prevent any kind of incidents or anything. Jake is going around introducing everyone in the barn. He says that he likes Cassie and she's really pretty and they're really close, but they're not dating. They just care about each other a lot. Everyone else, same descriptions. Marco's funny and strategic. Rachel is pretty and tough. Tobias is trapped as a hawk, acts as an alien. Standard stuff. As he's describing everyone, he says that Marco calls Rachel Xena Warrior Princess because she seems to enjoy all the fighting or something. But she's blonde, and I don't think Xena actually enjoyed the fighting. I think Rachel would be better described as Callisto in this case. Hell yeah, showing my Xena knowledge. Actually, I just watch a lot of YouTube retrospectives, and I just watched one by Jose on YouTube. So definitely go check that out. It was really, I love his videos. Anyways, finally, we cut back to the story. Jake isn't a roach, so how did he escape? He unmorphed and pushed the fridge out a little bit of it at a time as he went. He says that the roach felt vibrations, and eventually he was able to start making sense of them. It was talking or walking, things of that nature. His parents had come home early because his dad twisted his ankle during tennis playing, and they went to his room to look for bandages, and that's why they were in there. But they're upstairs now, so he should be safe to unmorph. As he's unmorphing, his mom comes in and sees him behind the fridge and sees a roach trap like stuck to his head. And she's like, what are you doing behind the fridge and with a roach trap? And that's it. He's just like, aha, silly kids. Like, no further questions. You know how kids are, sitting behind fridge. That was it. That was the whole. There was nothing else to that. Finally, Marco realized, and he's like, why were you morphing into a roach? What's going on? And so Jake had to tell them about how he's trying to get into the Yeerk's new building, and he hadn't told them before because, they're all so worn out from doing missions and getting close calls, and their grades are slipping, and he just didn't want to trouble them all. Real leader stuff to take everything on your own like that. He tells them about how he thinks that Tom has risen up the ranks and is like just below Principal Chapman. Oh, Assistant Principal Chapman. He says that Tom's careful when he's around, but Jake's been able to use redial and find out who he's been calling, and he's been talking on the phone with at least 5 different doctors at a certain hospital or something. And so his theory is that they're infesting, the Yeerks are taking over people when they go in for surgery. They go in for surgery, come out as a host. Pretty insidious stuff there. You think you're going in to get better, and boom, you're taken over by an alien. That's why you can't trust doctors. Cuts to Jake eating dinner with his family, and they all sound like a Disney sitcom family. Just like perfect, cute banter and love and all that stuff. And so Jake says that Axe told him how the Yeerks work, that by going into the brain and flattening out and turning all liquidy and melding with the neurons and taking control that way. That's just where my notes have this stuff. That must be what Jake is thinking about as they're eating dinner here. So Jake and Tom are sitting there bickering back and forth, in a very cutesy Disney way. And then eventually Jake starts taunting Tom about the sharing. And he's like, if you want to quit the basketball team, you're spending all this time with the sharing with, like stuff. I don't know. Normal bickering, but like so on the nose that like it seems a little bit like, not in a way that would make Tom question things, but still, maybe not taunting him would be less noticeable. Maybe the taunting is what makes it less noticeable, that, if he didn't provoke Tom, it would be stranger. I don't know. So they're all heading up, Jake is like, I gotta go to my room, and Tom's like, I'm going to my room, and they're heading up the stairs, and Tom is like, you really should join the sharing and be part of something bigger. And Jake is like, I don't want to be a part of something. I want to be my own person. Like a little more on the nose again. And Tom's just been trying to recruit Jake for a long time, and that's how they get voluntary hosts. They promise them they'll be part of something important, and then you end up being a host. As they try to convert you into like believing into the Yeerk cause, but it's either way they'll take you. Next scene, sometime soon, they're in Marco's new apartment. His dad got his job back. He's been working really late, and they moved into a better place. And so now Marco can host stuff because he's not embarrassed about living in a not so nice place. And they're actually going to practice morphing and getting used to things. And even Marco is surprised by this. I am too, honestly. And they finally figure out that they're going to need to know and understand how to use and control the morphs that they're using, especially roaches. Like, they're going to need to understand how to interpret what the roach is sensing if they're going to be a spy as a roach. And so they have a couple of them turn into roaches, and then a couple others on the outside talking, with Tobias translating in between until they understand each other, and then they rotate because Tobias can use thought speech. They recap that they're going to infiltrate a meeting of the sharing at the hospital, and Jake is like, look, I can just do this alone. And they're like, no, we all have to go. All for one, one for all. We're the musketeers. The rest are like, you're being so weird about this. And they figure that he doesn't want Tom to get hurt, and if they have to fight, they might have to hurt Tom or him, or or Tom would hurt them, something like that. Jake also says that he thinks that Tom is important to this mission, or rather the hospital stuff. And so if they succeed and foil the plan, what if Visser 3 takes it out on Tom, for failing to execute the plan? So either way, lose-lose. Some unspecified night, they head out to the sharing building. They go to the alleyway next door, an abandoned building, and they morph in the basement. I guess all these doors are just open. Tobias hits his wing on a pillar on the way in. That's not really consequential in this part, but it does make me wonder. First, there's a lot of abandoned buildings in this city. That is something. Second, Tobias can't morph. And so any injuries he sustains, he is stuck with. And birds are really fragile. He needs to be more careful. They also said that there's a guard in front of the door of the building. Like, it's not the hospital they're going into. This is just a small building where the sharing is. They scoped it out. They saw Tom going there or something. And so there's one guard in front of the door, and it's just a nondescript building. And they're going to go in. They morph into roaches in the empty building, walk across the alleyway and find some cracks in the wall, follow it inside, and boom, you're in the building. So they make it inside. They start making out people talking, and they hear the end of a conversation where somebody says, "The day is here to make our big move in the invasion." And Tobias is able to tell him what's going on outside. And he says that a limo pulls up and 6 guys get out, and 5 of them have guns. They seem like bodyguards that are kind of wary of the 6th guy. And the 6th guy is stumbling around a bit. And I think that is Visser 3 in Morph. And all those guys enter the building. Jake hears them announce, "Everyone, I present Visser 3. So I was correct. Obviously. Immediately, Visser 3 starts expositing about their 2-step plan. They are going to take over 200-ish involuntary hosts from the hospital front per month. And step 2, another step, I guess, different step, same step, I'm not sure, is they're going to overtake the governor, who they have arranged to have surgery at this hospital soon. That governor is actually going to be making a run for president, so if they get him, they might get the presidency. You know, it's just not good. Finally, somebody notices all these cockroaches, and they're like, "Visser, there's some bugs in here." And one of the controllers is like, "It's no big deal. Cockroaches are everywhere." And Visser 3 is like, "You're a fool. Andalites can be bugs too. Somebody shoot that guy." And so they pull out a gun and shoot that guy. I don't know why they would use guns, earth guns, instead of Dracon beams. Like, you'd think that having no body to clean up would be a little bit better than not. But maybe they can just destroy that body later with their Dracon beams. Or maybe they take that body back to the mothership and let the Texans eat it or something. I don't know. Maybe that's where they get the sustenance for their armies. So all of them start running, and the controllers are just stomping around like it's an Irish river dance show. All of them get to safety. Nobody gets stomped on except for Jake. He gets like cornered, and he's under some newspaper. They didn't see him yet, but like they lift up the newspaper, and there he is. Everyone else gets outside, but Jake is stuck inside, and they start spraying bug spray, and he gets hit with a little bit of it and starts getting paralyzed as he's running and like poisoned, basically. Apparently he made it outside because Tobias swoops in and picks him up in his talons and takes him to a roof nearby where he starts unmorphing. So he's gonna be fine. He does like start hallucinating and like going into a trance of like, shut down as he's morphing. And he has this like recurring dream, and he's having it again here, of him being a tiger and hunting Tom. And this time Tom's hunting him. And he opens his eyes and he's human again. Tobias is like, "You seemed like you were like half unconscious, but like you look okay now." And so I guess they don't need to focus as hard as they can to morph, which maybe they could end up morphing accidentally in their sleep or something. I don't know. This 154-page book at this point. And I'm like, maybe my guess is wrong. Maybe Jake isn't going to be turned into a controller in this book. Spoilers, I was not wrong. It's just half the book is lead to that. Everyone is safe, unmorphed, found their way home. Visser 3 left, and Tom left with him. Jake got this information from Tobias watching them. Don't know if it's a good or a bad sign, but it confirms that Tom wasn't the one who was shot. Sometime at school, Jake is playing basketball in the gym, but he's not very good, and that's why he didn't make the team. And him and a few others got into a collision when he's trying to make a shot. Like, it's not an important thing, but what if he had like broken an arm or a leg or something while he's playing these sports, or anything really, right? So what if he gets seriously injured and like breaks a bone? When he morphs, that's going to heal. That's going to be kind of odd, right? Bone breaks do not heal immediately, let me tell you. It doesn't happen. He just kind of tumbles onto the floor and is like, "Ah, you got me that time." I don't remember what he says. He's just like, "Oh, I missed the shot. That's why you guys are on the basketball team." As he's leaving gym class, Marco is like, I think that the governor is going to be at the hospital next Tuesday because I just called and I said I was a reporter and I got the governor's schedule and here's the only dates that are blocked off. They faxed him a schedule, honestly. They faxed him a schedule and here's the only dates that are like blocked off. That's got to be the days that he's getting surgery. Best social engineers ever? Possibly. They should honestly get some careers as some like white hat hackers or something. I don't know what is going on, but like it's amazing what information people will just freely give you. Their plan is to infiltrate the hospital that Sunday before the governor shows up so that they can disrupt the intended infestation. Marco also relays that Cassie thinks that they should do it as flies. So the next scene is Jake, Rachel, and Cassie walking around the mall because Jake needs to pick out a mom. Jake needs to pick out a gift for his mom for her birthday, and it needs to cost like $15 or less because he needs to save some money for his dad's birthday that's coming up too. And they find a blouse that's on sale. And Rachel's adding up all the savings. She's like, this thing's only $17 some change. Like, it was over $33. It's 50% off here and 10% off there. And look, you're saving $15 on this one. And Jake is just like, how am I saving money if I'm spending money? So even back in the 90s, they had girl math. Rachel goes off to go check out a different store and get something. And Jake is talking to Cassie and he's like, you think we should be flies? Like, I don't want to be another bug, but like flies can be found everywhere and they're like really versatile. So like, we should probably do this. Okay. They also said like, okay, we could try moths, but those are too slow and bulky. We could try bees, but those are another hive insect. We don't want to do a hive mind again. So flies is the plan. They talk about how they just need to get into the hospital. And that's probably where the Yeerk pool is, since that's where the hosts are being taken over. And they just need to get in, unmorph, find better morphs that can do some damage. And that makes me definitely think Jake is being taken over and in just 75 pages left to go. That's not a lot of time to like flesh this all out. I had wondered at this point, like I'm over halfway through the book now. If he does get taken over, is that where the book ends? And then the next one carries over and starts from there? That would make it so that this book is not standalone, which seems to not be a thing that they're trying to do. They seem to be making every book kind of standalone, even though they're part of the same series and world. So as I mentioned earlier, they talk about what the morphing looks like in every book. This one, they've been morphing a lot of insects. In this one, they've been morphing a lot of insects. In this one, they've been morphing a lot of bugs. And so they say all the morphs are grotesque and limbs and skin and all that kind of stuff transforming in different ways. And they often scream at the sight of each other when they see that, even though it doesn't hurt. You know, they're all at headquarters, Cassie's barn, and Cassie's morphing into a fly in front of them. Jake screams and Marco's like, yeah, that's going to make her feel good. And Jake's like, dude, you have your eyes closed. And he's like, and I'm not opening them. And it just really, really did make me giggle. The banter was really good here. I liked that. And Rachel, she dashes out of the barn and starts vomiting outside the barn. That's how gross it was. It even got to Rachel. And Axe is like, does morphing upset you? And they're all like, yeah, it gives us the willies. And then they have to explain that colloquialism to Axe. Tobias wasn't willing to come into the barn until it was all over. And so when it's over, Axe is telling Tobias in thought speak, he's like, she's done. It's cool. And so like, I guess Marco has been teaching Axe some slang and human norms and customs. And he's being a pretty good learner about it. Kind of like that scene in Terminator 2 with John Connor and the Terminator. However, Axe does not pick up on sarcasm. And so when they all morph after Cassie, Marco's like, yay, goody. And Axe is like, yay, goody. So Jake says that they all morph and the fly is totally different from flying as a falcon or a seagull. Houseflies beat their wing 200 times a second and move at 4 miles an hour. I've basically abstained in the past from doing pretty much any research into these books as I'm reading them. I'm not looking at author interviews. I'm not looking at like any forums or anything like that. I don't want to taint my experience or spoil anything for myself. So I've been just reading them as I, not reading anything as I go. But this one, I'm fact checking because like, do flies really beat their wings that much and stuff? And I'm looking this one up. It turns out that fly wings do beat about 200 times a second, and they can fly 5 miles an hour, but in short bursts, they can do up to 15 miles an hour. So there you go. Pretty accurate. They'll hop onto Tobias. He's going to fly them over to the hospital, and then they're going to fly and find a way in. Eventually, Tobias is like, here's an open window. He like flies as close as he can to it, and they all just jump off and start flying inside. They split up into teams. Rachel and Marco go one way, Jake, Cassie, and Axe go another way, and they're looking for a small Yeerk pool. I guess I did forget that the last one was like a really massive pool. So at first I was like, oh, where are they going to find something like that? But I guess this is like a portable pool, you know? That makes way more sense than having a big, massive pool. Jake, Cassie, and Axe, they start following a really peculiar smell and crawl under a door. And there it is, a Yeerk pool. They don't know if anyone is in this room. It's kind of dark. And they're like, all right, I think the coast is clear. Axe unmorphs first because he would be more useful than a couple of teenagers if there was somebody there. There was somebody there, and Axe incapacitated that person. So it's a good thing he went first. Otherwise, the Yeerks would have learned about humans being able to morph. The room they were in, it did have a doctor. Axe made that doctor unconscious, and it was also had a big whirlpool in it with a dome on top of it. And Jake lifts up the lid, and wouldn't you know it, that's your portable Yeerk pool. And then they explained that the Yeerks need Kandrona rays, and the portable pools have the Kandrona for them, and that's where they get their nutrients and stuff like that. And Axe says that Yeerks are naturally blind, so they don't see them when they're like looking at them here. And Jake sees that the whirlpool is unplugged and the cord is severed. He confirms with Axe, he's like, if I turn the heat up in here and like put a bunch of agitation, would that kill them? And Axe is like, yeah, probably. And so Cassie morphs into a wolf to stand watch, and Jake finds some tape or something and repairs the cord, plugs it in. There's no controls, so it just goes full speed and just starts killing hundreds of Yeerks in that pool, which is pretty brutal, I think. Just hundreds murdered in a war. They don't even know that they're being murdered. Well, they probably can sense that they're dying, but like, they don't know why, right? I know that they're taking over people and stuff, but like, war is messed up, okay? I guess at least in this case, they're not killing hosts while they're doing things, but yeah. So just as Jake plugs it in, it starts up and starts heating up and stuff like that. Two people come in, and a woman and a man, and the woman, it says Andalite, and Cassie, as the wolf, takes her down. Doesn't say if she killed the person, just says she takes her down. The other one escapes before Axe can do anything about it. Jake is kind of like hiding behind the pool while this is happening. He's trying to focus so that he can morph into a tiger. Two more guards come in. One of them has a gun. Axe like disarms him by cutting his hand off, as you do. Hopefully that won't cause any kind of fatal bleeding or anything. I don't know how much a hand being taken off would cause you to bleed out. I'm not a doctor. I have no patience. So the others, the hospital staff are calling for backup. They must have enough of the staff as Yeerks at this point, or all of them, really. And somebody, at some point, fires 3 shots, and Jake gets hit with a ricochet and passes out into the pool. He wakes up an undisclosed amount of time later, just throwing up liquid, and has an immense pain in his head and his ear. The battle is still happening with Cassie as a wolf and Axe as an Andalite, like, holding people off. But they're not going to be able to do that forever, right? It's just one doorway at this point. So, like, it's kind of bottlenecking people coming in. Another wolf and a gorilla show up. So Marco and Rachel have arrived as backup. Clear the way. Marco grabs Jake and carries him to safety. He puts a lab coat over Jake so that nobody can tell it's a human under there. Cassie is like, Jake's hurt. He fell into the pool. Rachel unmorphs and then morphs into an elephant, and like gives them more of a chance to get away. I don't know how that gives them more of a chance, but it does. The whole time, Jake is still like coughing and catching his breath, and his brain is getting like fuzzy, and he's having a hard time thinking. He hears a voice in his head that is like, Rachel is a human? And they make it outside. Again, this everywhere is on the edge of woods or forest or something. So they make it outside. Cassie gets morphs into a horse, unmorphs and morphs into a horse, and they throw Jake on top of Cassie as a horse so that they can get away. And Jake is like, my head, something wrong, but he's like fading and stuff. And Marco's like, yeah, you'll be fine. Hello, he's trying to communicate with you. And as they're getting away, Jake is feeling like everything is happening really far away. Like everything's getting more distant for him. And there's a voice in his head talking about things. And when he gets off of Cassie, he can't do anything. It's all happening to like him, but like not like a dream, right? And there's a voice in his head that's saying, don't resist, Jake. You're so pathetic. I got you now. And then he realizes he's a controller. And Tobias and Cassie are like, Jake, are you okay? And he's just sitting there dazed. And they're like, maybe we should take him to a hospital. And then Jake is like, inside Jake is trying to scream, but the Yeerk is just taunting him. It's like, I have control. I hear your thoughts and I have your memories. Don't struggle. I got this. I'm going to start referring to these as Yeerky Jake and Jakey Jake. How's that? So Yeerky Jake, Jakey Jake is all, get out. And the others are like, well, I see his eyes moving. And Yeerky Jake is telling Jake inside of his head, like, I'm Temrash 114, formerly Temrash 252 of the Sulpniar pool. And his last host was Tom. Isn't that amazing luck? This is the Yeerk that, like, Tom was? The one that's, like, moving up the ranks? That is a wild coincidence, I think. Of all the Yeerks in all the galaxy, you had to wander into Jake's brain. I can't do a good noir voice. He says that Tom was given a different lower ranked Yeerk. And so I guess that does answer the question of, do the Yeerks get a dedicated host? Do they keep the same one all the time? And since the Yeerk is talking to him, I also wondered, like, can they be manipulated? I guess they can hear and experience all your thoughts as they happen. So, like, maybe, but like maybe you could be like, well, maybe if you do this, you can, move up the ranks a little bit faster or something like that, and like help make a mistake for them or something. I don't know. Just some sort of subterfuge or something that you could somehow do. This Yeerk is saying that like he was going to be the one to infest the governor, but now he's definitely going to take a bigger role in the invasion. He just got a better body. And the others, they're still trying to get Jake to respond, thinking like maybe he's just shocked from the battle or something like that. The Yeerk starts taking over and starts talking. And so Yeerky Jake is like, no, I'm fine. We can't go back to the hospital. And the others are relieved, but like he didn't do anything for like 5 minutes. He's just sitting there. So like clearly something's off. So Jakey Jake can't control his body, but Yeerky Jake is telling all the rest, like, we got away. We should split up, got to get out of here. And Jakey Jake is like, surely they're going to figure this out, that this isn't me, anymore. And the Yeerk is accessing all of his memories and thoughts and trying to think of things that to say and stuff like that. So I guess they can't just like immediately have access to your memory, but like they kind of do. Like it's a big database, your brain, I guess. Everyone's regrouped. They've all escaped to the forest. And it's just so convenient that everywhere is built next to this forest or woods or something. And Jakey Jake is like, hey, Rachel, my cousin. Like when she arrives, I think that's kind of weird. The Yeerk sees Axe and has like the same disgust as Axe has for Yeerks. And he accidentally like lets slip the mask and sneers. And so Axe puts his tail at Jake's throat. And he's like, Yeerk, and like super tense. I guess they had to have figured. His head was in the pool. But again, how are they going to explain him disappearing if they have to watch him for days? How are they going to keep him from morphing? What if they give him a concussion or drug him? Would the Yeerk get all messed up? Do Yeerks get like, if the Yeerk is in your brain, surely any drugs or anything in your bloodstream is going to affect that, right? Like what if you gave them shrooms or something? That would be cool, huh? Anyways, X is the voice of reason, and he's like, I don't know all your human facial expressions, but you guys saw that, right? Like, and he was in the pool, and the rest are like, yeah, but like, and so X says that when the Yeerks take control of a new host, it takes a few minutes, and the host is going to appear passive in that time, just like Jake was. So they say that, like, the only way to be sure is to keep him, like, even if he's not a controller, by some miracle, even if he's not, the only way to be sure is to keep him in quarantine basically for 3 days. And the Yeerk is afraid of that, but like he's still using Jake's body to protest. And so, I have family. People are gonna notice I'm missing. Come on, you guys. He even says something really, really mean to Tobias. He's like, I'm not like Tobias. I can't just disappear. My family cares about me. Whoa. So rude. But they're all like, no, we can't chance it. Any leak, like any chance, and we'd all be dead. So we can't take that risk. And Cassie's like, we could just have Axe morph into Jake and nobody will know he's missing then. The Yeerk is not happy about that, and Jakey Jake starts taunting it. He's like, what's wrong? Axe is like, I'm gonna acquire your DNA, and he reaches out to touch Jake. Didn't he already acquire all of their DNA? Or did he like have to morph? Did he have to like acquire them all and recombine them, and so he doesn't have a just distinct Jake DNA or something? I don't know. Why would he need to acquire the DNA? But when Axe touches Jake, the Yeerk just couldn't control himself. And he's like, get your filthy hands off me, you damn dirty Andalite. The others are like, yep, that confirms that. And the Yeerky Jake is just like, no, I'm just stressed from a rough day. And like, they're like, we're not buying it. Not from Jake. They can't keep him in any of their normal locations, but Tobias is like, there's an abandoned shack in the woods. I don't think anyone's ever there. We can keep him there for 3 days. They can tie him up, but like, that's not gonna help too much, right? They can tie him up in the shack and just have somebody watch him the whole time. Tobias can watch all day long, basically, but the rest of them will take shifts. Axe is not going to be helpful because he's going to be pretending to be Jake 2 hours at a time. That's fine, I guess. What about at night? What if his family is like, hey, Jake, let's go to the movies? Is Axe going to be like, oh, what's that? What if they go see Titanic? Oh, oopsies, now you're trapped as Jake. Axe does have the ability to know how long he's got left in Morph, so he doesn't have to like guess, but still, 2 hours ago, school is longer than 2 hours. The rest of them, though, they're going to take shifts watching Jake. As they're picking Yeerky Jake up off the ground, inside he's telling Jakey Jake, he's like, all right, Rachel and the Hawk, they'll be pretty vigilant, but Cassie, she cares. She's the weak link. And Marco, he's interesting. I think I can persuade him. They're all like just talking amongst themselves, and they're like, Jake, if you can hear us, we know you can't respond, but we're going to save you. And Yeerky Jake is just like, no, you guys, it's really me. And Axe is like, how many Yeerks in that pool just died? Except for you. The Yeerk inside is like seething. But as Yeerky Jake, he's like, I don't like killing so many lives, but they're trying to enslave us. And so like Cassie's giving him a look, and the Yeerk is telling Jake, like, see, she likes what I'm saying, and her resolve, it's fading. Yeerky Jake is still protesting the whole way that they're walking to the shack, and he's like, you guys can't make Axe be me. We're all gonna be caught. And Rachel's like, shut up, Yeerk. We all know Jake, and we can teach Axe what he needs to know. And then Yeerky Jake turns around and sees Axe as Jake standing behind him. And Axe is like, I morphed a while ago so I could copy your mannerisms and stuff like that. He does keep messing up the speech things, but like not as bad. So, and then Yeerky Jake just starts smiling. And he's like, see, you'll never do it. Tom or somebody, they're going to figure this out. And Marco's like, Yeerky Jake, if you were really Jake, you would be helping us instead of like protesting, you know, like Jake would have stopped protesting. He would have been like, yeah, I'll help you pull this off. The Yeerk knows that, but he's still confident that he can escape. And Jakey Jake is like, he's just a little worried, like, how are they going to guard me, you know? They get to the shack, they get some rope, they tie him up, they say, we'll loosen the rope every couple hours so that you don't get any, you know, damage to your limbs or whatever. That's a chance to escape. The Yeerk is conjuring up fantasies of grandeur and about like rising through the ranks, and he's going to be the fastest person to ever rise through the ranks, and it's maybe even a couple years he'll be a Visser himself and stuff like that. And it makes me wonder, did the Yeerks have the ability to like think or imagine without a host brain? Like, are they limited to doing what a host can do mentally? If they're in a taxon and a taxon doesn't have the ability to like imagine, does that mean that the Yeerk itself can't imagine? Or a Yeerk independently can have like imagination and just transfer it over? Like, They never really expand on that too much. Obviously, they only have the senses that the host has, but like, what about the thought processes? Jake is inside and he's just like, is he showing me all of his fantasies because he's like super excited and he can't contain them? Or like, he's taunting me with them? The Yeerk is like, oh yeah, what are your fantasies? Your fantasies are so great. And he like shows Jake a fantasy of that Jake has. And it's Jake being in a big stadium and he's making the winning shot at basketball as like the buzzer sounds, and all of his friends and family are there cheering him on, and thousands of strangers. And I had to stop here and say, do people really have these like really vivid fantasies like this? Like, I cannot even comprehend this. Do I have like aphantasia or something? Like, none of this is relatable to me. I could have some sort of vague idea of what it would be like to stand in the middle of a stadium. There's no way I could actually put like myself into perspective there and the people around me. I would never be able to put like a person's face in the crowd. I would never even be able to put a crowd. It would just be random noise. Strange. I think that's a me thing. The Yeerk is just taunting Jake and he's like, see, your brain is just like a computer and I can control it and I can just show you whatever I want. And Jake is like, no, you're going to be dead soon. Just 3 days. You'll see. The Yeerk is all like, I'm not going to be here that long. He's like, and you know, your brother was defiant too. Do you want to see one of his memories? And so he starts showing Jake a memory of Tom's. So they do have the ability to like carry memories forward and play them back to their new host in some capacity, at least. If it's human to human, I assume that like that translates. But like, what if it was like monkey to human or something? And so Jake is like, he can actually like feel all of this as it's like being replayed to him, this memory. He can like feel all of the stuff that Tom was feeling at the time. And the Yeerk showed him a memory from just a few days ago. Jake and Tom at breakfast, the opening scene. Only this time, Jake can like feel Tom being defeated and crying inside and being like, no, don't hurt my brother and stuff like that. The Yeerk is like, see, that's how it always goes. The host can never win. Your body's not yours anymore. It's really dark to have like your body's not yours anymore, but it's really dark to like taunt with like, look, this is how like crushing we are. This is your family member, you know, like somebody that you would be like, oh no, they can handle anything. But like you can see it like from this perspective, like just the whole time it's like, oh my God. Jake is just like, just 3 days. I just gotta wait 3 days. Jake inside still can like sleep, but the Yeerk doesn't sleep. He only pretends to sleep. And Jake has this recurring dream about being a tiger and hunting Tom. And he wakes up and the Yeerk is like, interesting dream you had there. And so he starts morphing into a tiger because Rachel was guarding him. And oh no, Rachel fell asleep reading her book. Yeerky Jake morphs into a tiger. He's like, I'm not going to kill Rachel. That's another host. I'm just going to get on my way. So I guess he does have some aspirations. But in the forest, the Yeerk only knows as much as Jake actually knew, right? Like, and the tiger doesn't know much about this forest. So he's like, I don't know which way to go. And he's like, he smells humans and unfamiliar things. And so he just starts running. But he can't run too far because tigers aren't like long distance runners. It makes me wonder, can a Yeerk push the body past its normal limits? I mean, some of that is going to be like some sort of like physical process of like things building up in your muscles, and that's why you can't run anymore. But like, could a Yeerk be like, no, I've got the willpower to make a marathon out of this sprint or something, you know? Like, I don't know. He can't stay in morph forever, and the tiger is not super useful. He morphs back into human. He starts walking. He's like, oh, wait a second. I can be a falcon and I can just fly. There we go. And so he starts morphing into the falcon, and all of a sudden he starts getting hit with something. And it's a great horned owl that was attacking and injuring his wings, so he couldn't fly because, you know, birds are fragile. So it unmorphs again because it doesn't want to keep these injuries. And the Yeerk is like getting frustrated and kind of clueless as to what to do. The owl is Cassie in a morph. And she's like, sorry, we just were like pretending that Rachel fell asleep to see what you would do. The others are also in the forest. So that's the human smells that were around. And the Yeerk is like, you only got 2 hours in your morph. I can find a way. Maybe I'll be a flea. And Jake is like, how far can a flea go in 2 hours? Really? And then you're going to have to unmorph and they'll see you. And then you're back where you started. And then the Yeerk is like, fine, I'll be a wolf. And Jake is trying to use this time to like distract the Yeerk. And the Yeerk is like reading the thoughts as fast as he can think them. And so he can't really do it. Yeerky Jake morphs into a wolf. And the wolf seems to understand direction in a way that the tiger didn't. He's like, there's the city, run towards the city, and I'm in the clear. Just find a controller to talk to and I'm in. Jakey Jake is like, you Yeerks are so arrogant. And Yeerk inside is like, yeah, that's why we conquered the Taxons and the Harkbajir and Mac and Stram. 3 S's on that one. And soon the humans. So just there, we've got 2 more alien names, even if we don't know what they look like or sound like or anything like that. We know that some of them were on the mothership or something. So the Yeerk is running and all of a sudden he hears wolves howling. And Jakey Jake is like, yeah, those are my friends calling for the other wolves, the wolfy wolves of the forest. We met them before. And the Yeerk inside is like, yeah, I know. I can read all your thoughts and memories. I know. And you don't have to tell me. But like, it serves 2 purposes. Jake is taunting the Yeerk. Like, if somebody was just narrating to you stuff you already knew, that would be annoying. And 2, it tells us, if we didn't read those previous books, it's giving us that information. Like, oh, that's what's happening here. The Yeerk is running, and before long, it runs into 5 wolves. And they're blocking the way for Yeerky Jake to get to wherever he needs to get to. Behind him is Marco, and Rachel's morphed into an elephant. And Marco's like, come on, buddy, let's go back to the shack. Don't try nothing. Also, Cassie is a flea on your back, so we bugged you. And I don't know how Cassie unmorphed and morphed and got onto his back, but it happened. I think it's really cute, just all the ways that they have of tracking him and like tricking him into doing things. So the Yeerk gives up. And he's like, okay, let's go back to the shack. And Jake is talking about like, you know, that's the difference between you Yeerks and us humans. Us humans, we're going to keep fighting till the end. And the Yeerk is like, it's hopeless. Why would I keep fighting? They just assume that another Yeerk will take their place. They're just a cog in the machine. I guess if that's the case, why wouldn't you go down fighting then? I don't know. Same result, right? Next day, Yeerk tries again to escape. But this time he tries it as an ant. But he gets attacked by another colony of ants and has to unmorph. And the Yeerk, the Yeerk inside is just like, when we get this planet under control, we're going to get rid of all these darn pests. Everything doesn't need to predate on everything else around here. It's stated that the Yeerk took over Jake on Saturday morning, and now it's Monday evening. Axe didn't have to go to school for tons of days, as Jake at least. So since it's Monday evening already, that's like what, Monday morning. It's almost Tuesday morning seems to be the deadline here, right? The Yeerk inside is starting to get distracted, unable to concentrate, probably needs that Kandrona. The Yeerk is just struggling at this point, getting desperate. He tries to morph into a falcon again, but this time Tobias stops him before he could finish morphing and like just blinds him. And he's like, well, falcons can't fly blind. You're going to have to unmorph. And this is taking like a little bit of energy each time, right? Like, and the Yeerk is going to get more and more frustrated and make more mistakes as it goes. Yeerk and Jake are just talking inside of his brain. And Jake is just like, soon, tick-tock. And the Yeerk is like, you're really cruel. You know I'm dying and you're taunting me. And Jake's like, psh, hard to have pity for you when you're taking over my body. And so the Yeerk starts telling Jake about like his home world and how they evolved on the planet. And there was like maybe 100 species on that planet. Not millions like this place has. And they evolved with a creature on that planet called the Geds. The Jeds? The Geds. That are kind of like monkeys. They don't have like great eyesight, but they can smell really good or something. And some of the Yeerks still have Ged hosts. They also met the Andalites as the Geds. The Yeerk inside is like, you should really ask Axe about how the Andalites and the Yeerks met. Pretty cryptic stuff, right? Eventually, morning is coming, and the Yeerk is dying. And Cassie comes in, and she's like, Axe says that the fugue is starting. That's what it's called when the Yeerk dies, I guess. And it's not going to be pleasant, but I'll be here the whole time. And the Yeerk inside Jake is like, you're not going to like this, but maybe you'll learn something. And so as it's dying, it finally lets Jake see all of its thoughts and its home world and some creatures on it. And Jake is like, I recognize those aliens from the mothership. Those are the Ged random squid things are in the water. We don't know what those are. And he starts seeing the Yeerk's memories, and he realizes that the Yeerk carries a small part of each host with it into the new host. And eventually the Yeerk just comes out of his ear and he's Jake again. The last thing he saw was a giant half machine, half creature eye that floats in the sky, and it fills him with terror. And then he's Jake again. I have no idea what that eye thing was about. Cut to Jake is eating dinner at night, and his family is like, "Hey, you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, what's up?" And they're like, You're just not eating a lot. These last few days, you've been eating like ridiculous." And obviously, because Axe loves taste, he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. It's fine. It's whatever." So I guess Axe impersonating Jake went over smoothly enough. Didn't even alert Tom. They all meet up at headquarters a few days later. The hospital is reported to have shut down. Apparently, the Yeerks didn't want to keep using it. I don't know why. They lost one pool and like a couple, however many Yeerks were in that pool, but like they're just going to scrap the whole hospital plan? Seems like a good front to me. Jake morphs a little bit into a wolf so that he can still talk, but so that it like affects his vocal cords. And he calls up the house phone when Tom is home, and Tom answers, and he just says, "Hang in there, Tom. Don't give up." Because he knows that Tom can hear him inside somewhere. Okay. I mean, I guess he used like a voice modulator, but still, I guess that gives Tom a little bit of hope inside to like fight the Yeerk or something. And that's the end of the book. My thoughts? Oh my God, so many, but like also none. I asked all these questions as I was going. A bunch of them answered, a lot of them not. And nobody in Jake's family caught on to Axe being Jake and his unusual behavior. Guess that's good. Having a Yeerk and Jake this early in the series, I wonder if that's going to give Jake some more insight into the invasion, some more revelations about like world building stuff. He could be like, "Oh yeah, this is that thing that Yeerks do that like maybe Axe wouldn't have known about." Also, they alluded to like, you should ask your Andalite friend how the Yeerks and the Andalites met. How does Jake feel about killing hundreds or whatever the number is of the Yeerks in that pool? Does he even think about it? We got we got at least 3 more alien named, the Ged, the Mac, the Stram. Like I said, the Yeerks just gave up on the hospital plan. I'm not sure why. They lost one pool, sure, but like the Andalite rogues aren't going to kill every pool that comes in there, right? Just up security. I was about to wonder if that plan being messed up would affect Tom, but since his Yeerk was the one who was advancing, not Tom himself, they don't need to worry about Tom getting in trouble for that. That Yeerk would have gotten in trouble, but that Yeerk is probably going to be presumed dead with all the rest of the Yeerks in that pool. Unless they can tell Yeerks apart and be like, "We had 600 in this pool and there's only 599 accounted for. Where's this one over here?" But like, it doesn't sound like that's the case. We learned that the Yeerks don't feel love, but they do feel other emotions like pride and such, arrogance. We also learned that they don't have like names traditionally. They just get assigned a number, and as they go up the ranks, their number goes lower. So like 200 to 100 to 90s to Vissers. I feel like the Yeerk that was in Jake just wasn't very bright. I mean, it just doesn't sound like he tried too hard to get away or something. Maybe I just overestimate my ability to like think things through or something, but like I feel like I would have been able to escape, but maybe not. Maybe 4 to 1, I would have no chance either. It really didn't even use Cassie or Marco's emotions to manipulate them like it said it was going to. Could have tried that. What did you think of this book? What did you think of my recapping of the book? Did I miss anything? Was there something you think I should add? Leave me a comment. Let me know. I'm trying to get better at this. I want to reach more people. Feel free to subscribe and help me do that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.